Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Zeddy here, back at it again to drop What If Deku Was Taskmaster Part 2. On the last part, you guys ended up absolutely demolishing the Lyco. Therefore, you guys are going to be getting the entirety of the series of What If Deku Was Taskmaster without any more Lycos. That being said, though, I would still appreciate it if you guys still like the video, as it does help for the YouTube algorithm. But that being said, make sure you guys check out the links in the description that feature my Discord server, my thumbnail maker, and the group channel, the Akatsuki, which features me, Rogex, Izukage, and Phoenix Sani. That being said, I don't want to waste you guys' time too much, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so on the last part, I left off with Deku being like, I wonder how many likes Zether's gonna have to make them get before they can get part 2. Oh well, might as well go home now. As Deku would basically start going home. This is when Deku would arrive home, and honestly, he would just get some dinner, which Minko makes, and he would then pass out. This is when Deku would then spend the next couple of days basically just waiting for his entrance letter, seeing as the man knows, like he knows he got into UA. He saw the way that the other kids were fighting with some of them having some flashy quirks, and some of them looking like they're definitely not getting into UA. Deku could immediately tell, off rip, that man was getting into UA because he's a bad man. That man Deku, that man's strong to say the least. That being said, Deku honestly is just going to be chilling for the week. However, the day before school is when he and Inko decide to go off to celebrate. This is when Deku would basically be with Inko on the mall, and she would basically tell him to hold on right next to a little bit of a weird little mini game in the mall. She would say that she's gonna go into the store and go buy some things. And also, one more thing to add, Inko never got chubby in this version, cause Deku never was quirkless, so she never fell into some sadness, and that never forced her to eat out of, depression or whatever it was that made her be fat. That being said, this is when Deku was honestly just chilling there, and he's on his phone. He's just scrolling through Instagram until he turns around. He has a guy call him. He's like, "Hey, you want to try this game out?" He's like, "You look pretty fit." Deku would turn towards his direction and be like, "Huh?" As he'd be like, "What is this?" As he'd read the rules, it says, "Hang for 2 minutes, win $100. You have to pay $10 to do it." Deku would be like, whatever, I might as well. This is when he would basically just give him the $10, and Deku would hang, as the guy would start turning the timer, and Deku would have already gotten to about 1 minute. At this point, he'd be like, "This guy's gonna do it," as a bunch of people would start to surround him. This is when a group of just high schoolers and a group of seniors would pull up, right? A bunch of high school seniors would pull up from Quirks. They're from hero schools, right? And they would then look at Deku as they're like, "Hey, watch this." One of them goes up to Deku and literally just pushes him off. As Deku, before he can even fall, he catches himself with the bar with one arm, throws himself back up there, and hangs on for the next 30 seconds, causing Deku to win the $100. This is when Deku would get handed a $100 bill, and Deku would then look at the kid who did that to him, who was just standing there like, "Hey, dude, I'm sorry." As Deku would look at him and be like, "Oh, sorry, alright." This is when Deku would punch him straight in the jaw, and the kid, his jaw would have gotten dislocated. This is when Deku would punch him in the nose, and the kid would fall onto his ass. As immediately the other kids are like, "Hey," as they would rush at him. One of them would have a fire quirk, the other one has an ice quirk, and one of them has a little bit of a wind quirk. They would all rush at him, and they all have flashy quirks, and they would shoot their attacks all at once, which would cause them to all disperse, seeing as they're all kind of opposites to each other. That being said, Deku would smirk, and this is when he would immediately rush at them, as he would do an immediate takedown. He would jump up into the air as he punches one of them right on the side of the head, knocking him out, and he kicks one of them square in the stomach, just forcing him to lose his air. As this is when Deku would jump off of the other one, and he would legit bash one of the kids' heads into the ground. As it is this point that Deku just stands there and gets into his fighting stance, as he looks at them and spits on one of the kids, and he then walks over to his mom. This one, Inko would be like, "Izuku, let's go." As Deku would be like, "Alright, mom, let's go." And a bunch of people would have actually been recording what happened. This is when Deku would basically just go to school the very next day, and this is when immediately, as soon as he walks inside, Deku is told immediately by the people who are in the class, they're like, "Dude, were you the kid who fought the other day?" Deku would be like, "Yeah, why? What are you talking about?" As they'd be like, "Dude, you're viral." Deku would look at the video and he would then be like, I should have been like, yeah, don't post that, but I didn't say anything. All right, well, yeah, that's me. Those guys started it. As they'd be like, what do you mean they started it? What happened? Deku would explain what happened, and they would be like, oh, makes sense, but, you know, don't you think you went a little overboard? Deku would say that he would have never had to done anything if they would have never acted the way they did. And this is when Katsuki, or Bakugo, would pull up behind Deku, and he'd be like, hey, Deku. This is when Deku would turn around and see a very familiar face. Immediately, Deku would smile, and his face would light up as he would be like, Kachan? As Bakugo would look at Deku, we'd get like a little bit of a cringy face as he would look at him and be like, huh, yeah, that's me, Deku. What's up? This is when Deku would look at Bakugo and be like, dude, it's been forever. How have you been? Deku would go up to Bakugo and dab him up. As Bakugo's like, I've been good. You know, I've just been chilling. Getting a lot stronger than you. As Deku would look at Bakugo and immediately just be like, oh, he think he's stronger? This is when Bakugo would be like, yep. So you better have been training or else I'm going to leave you in the dust. As Deku would just look at him and start chuckling. This one, before Deku could even give off a cocky remark, Aizawa would get up from the desk as he would be like, alright guys, it took you guys 8 seconds to be quiet. Meet me outside and throw these on. Uraraka would be like, but what about orientation? As Aizawa would be like, we don't have time for orientation. We have 3 years to mold you into perfect heroes. As they all just go into the changing room and everybody would see Deku's physique. Yeah. Deku Deku would get ripped, and like Kirishima noticing how like just the build that Deku has is just like, dude, you're a Greek god, like bro, like how did you get so buff? Deku would say he just works out, and Kirishima would be like, dude, we gotta go to the gym sometime. As Deku would be like, sure thing, I'm down. As this is when they would all go outside. Aizawa would immediately look towards Deku's direction and throw the ball at him. As Deku would be like, what's this for? Aizawa would then look at Deku and say, alright kid, you gotta throw that ball as hard as you can. I'm gonna be showing you your score on this little device that has a tracker on the ball. Just throw whenever you're ready. As long as you stay in the circle, it'll count. Deku would look at Aizawa and just be like, alright, so I just gotta throw it? And Aizawa would be like, cha-ching. As Deku would be like, alright, seems simple enough. Deku would reel his arm back and throw it for about 400 meters. And everybody would just have their jaws drop. They would be like, this kid is inhumane. As Deku just chuckles and like kind of like rubs his arms. He starts spinning it and he starts popping it back into place. Because he kind of dislocated it to throw it that far. As Deku would pop it back, he would then be like, ah. And then he would then look at Aizawa as he says, that good? As everybody would get excited and be like, dude, do you have some sort of super strength quirk? Deku would say that that's not it at all. He would say that he just has a copy quirk. And they would say, oh, so you copied someone's strength. Deku would say, I can copy movements, not quirks. As they would be like, that's it? They'd be like, it's not that flashy, but I mean, if you threw it that far, then I mean, I'm just going to take your word for it. You definitely belong here. This one, they would have the rest of the exams, and Deku would get first place, with Bakugo coming in at third. Due to the fact that Bakugo got clapped up by Deku a whole lot when he was growing up, Bakugo definitely realized that there's always going to be someone stronger than him out there. So this version of Bakugo doesn't exactly just be like, oh, alright, I'm going to be better than everybody and there's nothing anyone can do about it. No, that doesn't happen whatsoever. Bakugo instead, he realizes, yep, some people are going to be better than me. I just got to live with that. And he just has to train a lot harder if he wants to keep up. That being said, Bakugo trained a lot harder than the original, 3 times actually, which would lead to Bakugo getting third place in the Quirk exam. However, this is when we are now going to be talking about Deku walking up to Bakugo and be like, so what was that you were saying about being stronger than me? Bakugo would be like, and he would just kind of just be like, whatever. As he would walk away, this is when Bakugo would just be like, if we ever get the chance to fight here, I'm going to put you in the dust, Deku. It's not the same as when we were kids, you know. I've had time to train. Deku would look at Bakugo and be like, so have I. It's not like you're the only one that got stronger. As Bakugo would grit his teeth, he would then walk away and remember all the anger that he had towards Deku. As it's at this point that Deku just chuckles, and Deku would then go to leave as someone actually stops him. This would actually be Mina. She would ask Deku what his quirk is and how she's interested in it. And Deku would begin to explain, as Deku knows exactly that he knows exactly what she's really interested in. She's interested in, and Deku is interested in providing that. That being said, Deku would look at Mina as he's like, so enough small talk. You want to go to my place? As Mina would be like, oh, fast, I see. And she'd be like, sure thing. As this is when Deku and Mina would be talking as they're on their way home or to Deku's house, seeing as Inko's at work right now. She doesn't get out until like 8, and it's about like 5 o'clock right now. So they would arrive, and Deku gives her the work for 2 hours. They're doing biology, whole lot of that, and multiplication, addition. They subtracted the clothes, they added bed, and all that stuff. Anyways, that being said, this is when Deku would basically go to school the very next day. As he would enter class, he would put his stuff down, and Deku would just push his hair back. As he puts it in, like he has it like in a sort of comb over type of way, where it kind of just is like thrown to the back of his head, and Deku has like his hair kind of slicked back ish, I guess you could say, but it looks clean. Like he doesn't put gel in it, it just sits like that, and it looks clean. Deku was like some long hair in this version, and it's pretty fire to say the least. That being said, think the Winter Soldier, but like no. Think if you guys have seen Cobra Kai, think sort of Robbie, but like a little messier and not as much like that, but more as in like a I don't care type attitude. He'd walk in, and this one Mina would sit on Deku's desk, and she'd be like, "So we had a great time yesterday, right?" Deku would look at Mina and be like, "We didn't do anything last night." He would literally just act as if he doesn't know her, and Mina would be like, "What?" And Deku would just be like, "Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about." Deku would legit play it off as if nothing happened, and Mina would be like, just try to slap him, but Deku would catch her hand and be like, yeah, get out of here. As Mina would leave, and she would get kind of angry by that, but Deku would just smirk at her as he just blows her a kiss. Mina looks at him and doesn't know whether to get angry or smile, but she would smile, and Deku would just be like, round 2. She looks at him, and even though she's kind of mad that he just blew her off and acted as if they were nothing in front of the class, he's still gonna give her the work later. That being said, Mina would go, and this is when they would go through class. As well, the final class would arrive, and All Might would bust in the door saying, I am here. As he would be like, I'm walking through the door like a normal person. Everybody would be like, it's All Might. And this is when Deku would just be sitting in the back of the class chilling, as he's like, looks like All Might is going to work here after all. He would have heard some news about that. Deku at this point would have been like, pretty great things, As he would then look at All Might and say, hey, All Might, can I talk to you for a second? All Might would go over to Deku and he'd just say, hey, All Might, I just wanted to say thank you for opening my eyes to my weakness back then, about 10 months ago. As All Might would be like, oh yeah, you're that kid who I saw and saved the other day, right? And Deku would be like, yeah, but trust me, I won't be needing saving anymore. As All Might would smile, he'd be like, that's great, young man. This is when he would say, well, all of you need to suit up because the clothes make the pros, and we're going to be having a little bit of a training exercise. As they would all end up going to suit up, Deku's costume is going to be the Taskmaster outfit that you guys see on screen. It's going to be the MCU version, but trust me, Deku's going to have a whole lot of personality. He ain't going to be like the normal, Taskmaster in the movie who was just so dead and dry and was just like mind-controlled goon. That's definitely not what Deku's going to be. That being said, Deku would basically end up going outside. As the people would look at him, Bakugo would be like, you look more like a villain than a hero in that thing. And Deku would look at Bakugo as he's like, yeah, I was talking about, speaking of looking like a villain, Mr. Terrorist over here, better calm down. As Bakugo would be like, this is when Deku would look at him and chuckle and be like, dude, I'm just playing, calm down. This is when he would say, you look like such a little angry Pomeranian. As Bakugo would just be like, how dare you? This is when Deku would just be like, whatever. Now he walks over to the back, and this is when All Might would begin to save the team. This Deku is just honestly being really cocky right now. He has he has one weapon. That's what Deku has. He has one weapon, which literally has a bunch of modes. And it legit comes with almost limitless ammo. So Deku will never have to worry about running out of ammo or anything. Deku quite literally has a weapon which can transform into different weapons. So if he wants, he can create a scythe, a hammer, an axe, a saw, a chainsaw. He can create any type of gun, snipers, anything that you guys can think of, Deku can basically do. And that being said, this is when Deku would just throw the weapon on his back as he's with Uraraka versus Bakugo and Ida. And Deku would walk by Bakugo as he looks at him and nods his head. Bakugo would look at Deku as he knows Deku is just grinning under that mask. And it's at this point that Deku would go inside as he tells Uraraka that she's going to be the one who finds the bomb room, but he's going to be taking care of both of them. That's all she needs to do. Uraraka would be like, wait, but isn't this a team exercise? And Deku looks at her as he says, trust me, I'll do this way better than if we work as a team. As she would say, okay. And Deku would then look at her, he'd be like, come on, go do your job. Uraraka would then proceed to go over there, and she'd be like, that guy was weird. As this is when Deku would just be like, I guess this doesn't really work on every girl. And Deku would then basically just sit there down there as he legit sits down and just like puts in some earbuds. As his helmet, it can legit put on music for him. Deku would put on some music, and then you would just hear, oh. Many of you guys are probably like, what is this? What's going on? And I'm sorry that I just may have potentially destroyed your ears. You know, maybe I'd gave you brain cancer after doing that, but I do apologize. That being said, though, this is when I am now going to be basically covering the fight between Deku and Bakugo. This is when Bakugo would jump down and he'd be like, "Oi, Deku, let's go." As he would rush at Deku, he would then say, "I'm gonna beat you this time." As he would blast an explosion at Deku's direction, Deku would catch his arm, and before he even got the chance to slam him on his back, Bakugo would propel himself away from him. As Deku's like, you have a pretty unorthodox fighting style. Deku would say, "I like that." As it's at this point that Deku would turn in the same way that Bakugo did, and they would both be looking at each other head to head. Deku would throw a punch and Bakugo would throw an explosion, blinding Deku, but seeing as Deku has the mask on, he can turn on thermal vision. Deku would do just that, and he would then rush at Bakugo as he jumps off the wall and punches Bakugo square in the jaw, just sending him crashing over there to the wall. Bakugo would then shoot an explosion, blowing himself up, and it's at this point that he would literally bust through the other rooms as they would go to a different room to continue the fight. Deku would rush at Bakugo and throw a bunch of kicks. As Deku would then do a backflip as he kicks Bakugo into the air, Deku would then basically take out the weapon. As out of nowhere, he would turn it into two Nightwing looking sticks. He would then slash them together, and they would then immediately start sparking with electricity. As he would smash them onto the ground, Bakugo would be like, "What?" As he would jump up, dodging the electricity. But this is when Deku knew what he was doing. He would rush at Bakugo and go in for a kick as Bakugo moved, but Deku expected it, and mid-air, Deku switched his direction, grabbed Bakugo by the head, and slammed him into one of the walls. As Bakugo got hit on that, Bakugo would immediately turn towards Deku, but before Bakugo could even get up, Deku would kick Bakugo square in the head, sending him crashing back into the wall. And this is when Bakugo would then start thinking that maybe there's one way to win. If he starts faking it and he hits him with the explosion gauntlets, Bakugo would then start being like, "How'd you get so strong?" As Deku would start, going into, he's like, "You know what? I guess I'll let me monologue." Deku would begin to talk about how he trained for so many years, and Bakugo would then be like, "Perfect." But right as Bakugo lifted his arm to shoot the explosion at Deku, Deku would transform the sticks into a pistol, and he would blast it, just destroying the gauntlet. And the other one, Deku would just kick it, breaking it on impact. Deku would then look at Bakugo, pick him up by the shirt with one arm, stare him down right in the eyes and say, "Bakugo, even though you have that flashy quirk, anything you can do, I'll always do better." As he would then slam him into the wall, knock Bakugo out, and Deku would then just create a rocket launcher. It was you blast it up to the sky, and it would just cause Deku to jump up and basically do some gymnastic type stuff as he would get over there to the bomb room. And Ida and Uraraka would both corner Ida, as Ida would be like, "How are you able to?" But before Ida could even react, Deku would literally copy one of Ida's kicks as he would smash his foot right into Ida's skull, cracking it. Ida would bleed, and immediately Uraraka would touch the bomb, as they would have ended up winning fairly easily. Deku honestly probably shouldn't have done all that stuff, but I mean, what are you gonna do? Deku is Deku at the end of the day. That being said, though, guys, this is where I'm going to be leaving off the second part for what if Deku was Taskmaster. If you guys were wondering what happens to Deku in terms of repercussions, Deku was actually given none after he shows proof in the video that Bakugo was actually going to use some very highly explosive weapons on him. All Might then realizes that Deku was in the right for reacting the way he did, and this is when he would get literally no trouble. In terms of for Ida, Deku would just say that, you know, he's sorry for that, and he would just put on a little bit of an act where he's like, yeah, sorry about that, Ida, I didn't mean to. Ida would just be like, yeah, whatever. And this is when Deku would basically just go home. That's pretty much how today's part kind of ended in terms of content. That being said though, guys, you guys all know the drill. It has been your boy Zether. Make sure you guys share the video with a friend, seeing as it will help the video do better. Make sure you guys report your attendance down below. Comment down below what you thought of the video. Leave a like, subscribe, and with that being said, it has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.